Hey folks, Gary here with Paramount Tactical Solutions. So what you're getting ready to watch really is a master class on just about everything to do with winches, but also off-road recovery in general. And the gentleman that is actually providing this block of instruction, his name is Dustin Potterfield. He has been doing off-road training for over 18 years. And where he primarily teaches to, or who he primarily teaches to, is our most elite units in special operations. So I'm telling you right now, the information that he's providing is absolutely invaluable. So if you ever think that you'll need a winch, you have a winch, or you're thinking about buying a winch, folks, this information is great. And while the information here is amazing, it doesn't compare to the 2 days of full instruction, because what you don't see in this video is all the practical exercise that students are going to do in real world environments after this. So folks, if you're serious about being prepared and you want the technical knowledge, the skill and ability to maximize the capabilities of your four-wheel drive vehicle, and I don't care if we're talking about everyday driving, just out having fun in the mud, or in real life emergency situation, as well as being able to recover that vehicle safely and effectively, or someone else in an emergency situation, make sure that you check this video out, as well as check out our upcoming courses. So I want you to enjoy this video and make sure you come train with us. You'll be glad you did.
Because the only thing holding that line out of the drum is technically friction. All right, there is a little set screw, a little 8mm set screw that has nothing to do with holding it on there in terms of any strength. It is the friction on that drum that holds that line on there. So you have to have, 8 wraps on that drum. Any fewer than that, and it can start pulling off, and you're going to be in trouble. So leave 8, 9 wraps, something like that on the drum. So now, again, getting the majority of your line off is where you get the strength in your winch. Now, if you don't have that luxury, you would say, I only have one tree and it's 30 feet in front of me. What am I going to do? And I really got a really tough pull. I got a really tough pull. I got one tree, it's 30 feet in front of me.
Down and back?
Yeah. So I can use, what's that tool used? What's the purpose of a snatch block? And you'll see it here in a minute, but what's the point of going out and back? So yeah, we'll get more lines. So now we've got, instead of 30 feet off, we got 60 feet.
Doubling our pulling power.
Yeah, it increases our pulling power by 2. So you get a lot of people will say, regardless of how you use a snatch block, you increase your pulling power. That's not true. Thank you, sir. So this is a snatch block. The way they work is you put the line in here, and I'll show you in a second how it lays in here. You close it up, put a bow shackle on here, out to your tree or other vehicle, and then bring your line back to yourself. Now you only get that mechanical advantage when you terminate back to yourself, the vehicle that you're recovering, me. That's when you get the 2-to-1. If you terminate anywhere else on another vehicle, a tree, there is absolutely no mechanical advantage whatsoever. So some people again, they'll try to debate that, and it's just doesn't exist. But you get that 2-to-1 by going out to a tree and back to yourself. So I've effectively created, an 18,000 pound, 19,000 pound winch. So, but what you've also done is you decrease the speed of the winch by half. So if that winch line was moving at 1 foot per second, now it's going, a half a foot per second. So it's going to be slower, but it's going to be stronger. But why else might I use this? What's the other purpose of this snatch block? So I can change the direction. That's a big thing, right? So the way this way it works, snatch block gets opened up, I lay the line in there, I go out to my tree, my truck, with a bow shackle, and come back to myself, all right? So this line and this line are moving. That's how you start to figure out what the mechanical advantage is. Now, if I were to go back to my vehicle and then put another snatch block here and then go back to another vehicle, 1, 2, 3 lines are moving, 3-to-1 mechanical advantage. So you can start increasing that mechanical advantage every time you start adding these snatch blocks. But like someone said, I might want to do a redirect. So why would you ever want to do a redirect? What's the point of doing a redirect?
Right.
Right, so if you've got this sort of situation, why is this bad? Why don't we like this? Say, I'm sorry? So
It's going to miss feed when it comes into the winch.
So I think he's thinking friction. So you're going to create friction on that fair lead. But like you said also, you're going to create line wrapping up all on one side really quickly. And what does that do? We already know it does what? It decreases the power of the winch, but you're also going to get all that line built up real quick, and you're going to max out the space on your winch real fast too. So you've kind of, two bad things. You're decreasing the strength of your winch, and you're going to build up all that line over here quick, and you're also going to create, maybe more friction on that Haas fair lead. So by using that snatch block, I can do more of a straight line pull out to whatever it might be, and then terminate again wherever it may be. It may be on another vehicle, it could be a tree or whatever. There's no mechanical advantage with that, but your ability to use that winch more creatively increases significantly. So if you think about this, let's say I'm going down a trail, all right, and my trail's pretty narrow. I'm moving this way down my trail. The truck in front of me is stuck. He's got no winch, or it's dead in the water. I can't move him, all right? I can't move myself, but I've got a truck back behind him, and I've got a winch here. So how do I move that truck forward with my winch on this truck with a snatch block?
Run the line up under the truck.
Yeah, so I run a line out to a tree or something out here, and then terminate on this vehicle. And I can winch him forward all I want, right? And I can keep doing that as much as I need to. So you can get pretty creative with the snatch blocks. Again, the big thing is increasing the pulling power, or increasing the power of the winch, as well as changing the line that's come off the winch as well. So if you need to be more straight, or you need to, again, get creative with the maneuverability of the vehicles you're trying to recover. So these come in handy. Having one of them is good. You can also purchase two, of course, and have even more flexibility. This is 3/8 synthetic rope. It's rated for about 18,000 pounds. It is actually stronger than the wound steel cable. Steel cable of the same diameter is going to be 13,000 pounds. But who can tell me some of the benefits of this? It's lighter. So what is what is that lightness? What does that translate to? So what happens when this breaks? It's got less energy in it. So that steel line, it's got more mass in it, right? It's not only more mass, but it's also wound steel cable. So when that steel cable breaks, what's it want to do? Unwind. It's got a very big signature, so a big profile. When it breaks, it's not just here, it's very big, because that wound steel cable unwinds, and it has a very big area of destruction potentially. And it's got that energy that it's because it has a lot of weight to it and mass. It's not going to just drop to the ground. So it's not as strong steel. The steel is also a lot more potentially dangerous because of the attributes, what happens to it when it does break. So this is lighter. When it does break, it doesn't necessarily going to slap you in the face, and it's not going to hurt. It's going to potentially hurt still pretty good, but it's not going to decapitate you or hurt you to the point of killing you, because it is light. It also floats. It's way easier to handle. I'm still going to use gloves, but this stuff is super, super easy to use. So what happens to steel cable when you wrap it over itself and you put a big kink in it, or it gets compromised pretty easy? Or what happens when you abrade one of those little metal lines? You start to winch that stuff in, where's it gonna go? Into your finger, and it's gonna hurt like hell. So even if you're wearing gloves, it's gonna go right through a leather glove. So way easier to handle, it's stronger, it's safer. The really only drawback to it is it doesn't take abrasion really well over and over and over. So you don't see a lot of commercial tow trucks using it because they're pulling 20 cars up the deck all day long. It's gonna break down a little bit quicker. Now, it does have this abrasion sleeve you can put on it. So if you are pulling it over some dirt or a rock surface, put this over that area. So it'll help keep it from getting abraded. It's not super cheap, but you can buy stuff, Amsteel or Dyneema are the two brands you want to kind of stick to. Those are the two main manufacturers. And then a lot of companies just rebrand it as their own. But Amsteel and Dyneema are the two that you want to kind of stick to. Good manufacturers. The other thing is the hook. When you attach a hook to something, how do I want to attach it? Do I pat like this or like this? Up. And why do we attach the hook always in the up position?
Because if it breaks, it's going to head down.
Yep. So if that hook were to fail, let's say it cracked or started to break, or that gate started to open, that's going to come down, right? Versus if we have it in this direction, that hook were to fail, It's coming up more at head level. So always get into the habit of attaching a hook in the up position. A couple of things when we're winching to make sure we're doing is, let's just say I'm winching myself to a tree out there, and my ground speed of my vehicle is going faster than my winch speed. So my winch speed says 2 miles an hour, my truck speed is 3. I'm gonna start going faster than the winch, and you're gonna get slack in the line. Now, if you're going up a steep hill and you're driving a manual transmission and you've got slack in that line and you dip the clutch, what's happening? That's gonna happen, right? It's called shock loading. This stuff has no stretch, none. Almost virtually 0% stretch. A steel cable line has more stretch than this. So this does not take a shock load whatsoever. So it's not meant for dynamic recovery whatsoever either. So when you do that, it's gonna snap and break this or the winch. So when you see that line drop, when you're winching and you're going faster, stop your vehicle, let that winch line catch up and get taut again. So always keep tension on it. Just like today when we did our 3-car movement with the down vehicle in the middle, keep everything tight, all right?
Does there exist a winch line that can put up a shock?
So what some people are doing now is they'll take and put a kinetic rope at the end of this and attach it to the, their hard point, like a tree or another vehicle. So that becomes their shock load, So they'll take a shorter kinetic rope, attach it to the end of this, and that's their sort of their safety net in terms of, or their fusible link, so to speak. So that does help. That can help for sure. I see a lot of people doing that, and I don't see why you can't do that. We do it as well when we're out there training. But this is the way to fly in terms of winch line. So it's been around for quite a while. I've been using it for at least 15 to 16 years. That's the way to go. Now the winch itself has a free spool lever here. So you can pull your line out and hook it up. After you're done hooking it up, then you go over and you lock it and you're good to go. All the brands have, their own little, free spool lever. Super Winch has that little T handle. Warren has more of a lever. They're all gonna have that on the winch at some point or someplace.
Garrett, is there one brand of winch you've seen as far as you consider more reliable than others?
Been using Super Winch for 20 some years. They've gone through, it really comes down to how much money you want to spend. You can buy a cheap Super Winch and it's not going to be as good as or more robust as their higher end stuff, or a Warren 8274, which they've been making forever, is considered sort of the benchmark for winches. Everybody loves that very old traditional 8274 Warren. They're expensive, but they're very strong winch, really good. But I've been with Super Winch for a while. Warren makes some good winches too, as does Mile Marker makes a good winch too. So there's 3 good manufacturers out there.
Don't go with Harbor Freight.
No, I'm not a big fan of Smitty built either. I know some people like that, but it's just a cheaper winch, and they're saying, "Oh, I just use it twice a year." I'm like, well, that's not really a good excuse, Like it just has to fail once, and then you're kind of screwed. But the most common thing to fail is going to be the solenoid on these things, just because they get wet and dirty. They go through heat cycles, and they tend to fail over time. But that's going to happen with any winch. When you are gathering up your winch, make sure you don't wrap it around your hand. If you've ever had horses, not to do that with a lead line. Same thing with a winch line. Never wrap it around your hand, because if something were to happen, just like with a horse takes off on you, same thing happens here. It's going to take you wherever it wants to go. So always just hold it like this. Always stay about an arm's length away from the winch too. Don't put your fingers in here messing around with stuff unless you've got control of the winch controller itself. And then we've got our winch controller. So again, winch in and winch out. If you're using hand signals, winching in is this, all right? Winching out is this. I just prefer using hand signals because if you can't hear me, because there's a bunch of stupid race cars out there, you can definitely see my hands, right? So winch in, winch out, stop, F and stop. Whatever it is, make sure your hand signals are clear and concise. Try to keep your verbal commands to a minimum. Just much more clear with hand signals. And again, all the winches are a little bit different. All the connections are different. So just because it's a Super Winch, they have 4 different, types of, connections on their controllers. So winching in and winching out. The vehicle should always be on when you're using your winch. I'm to have it turned off now just because it's too loud. but make sure your vehicle's on. Never, ever, ever be in neutral when you're winching. I get a lot of questions all the time. What gear should I be in? Be in the gear that you're moving. If you're going forward, be in drive. If you're going backwards, be in reverse. Never be in neutral. If I'm going up a hill in neutral and all of a sudden my winch line breaks or something happens, be in the gear you're going in. So never be in neutral. It's just not a good habit to have. What am I forgetting? Yeah.
This car is static and you're trying to pull something else out. Would you want to try to put this one in gear and then shut it off, or just leave it apart?
So if you mean I'm recovering somebody with this, right? Nope. Always, if this winch is operating, it's got to be on. And there should be somebody behind the steering wheel of that vehicle. So always be in control. Let's just say I'm on a hill, right? I'm winching somebody up that hill. So what I'll do is I'll pull this vehicle up to a tree, right about here, and my bumper stays here against the tree. That way it won't slide down. Because if it's a really wet day, I'm on a hill, I start winching a 7,000 pound truck up the hill, what's gonna happen? Yep. Now, if you don't have a tree that you could put it up against, what could I do to the back of the truck? Anchor it, secure it to something so it's not gonna get pulled down that hill. And again, take your time when you're doing this stuff. Don't rush winching, because this is where people get hurt and end up doing stupid things. So it's because they're just rushing. Take your time, come up with a good plan. So I always tell people, once you get stuck, stop, secure the vehicle, make sure it's safe, get out, figure out why you're stuck, then pick your mode of recovery. Is it gonna be a winch, kinetic rope, strap, high lift jack? Come up with a plan, then execute that plan, boom, you're done. Have one person in charge, not 3 people. You know what that's like. You're gonna have 3 people telling one guy what to do. It gets, to be a mess, and it's analysis paralysis time. We're going to roll that vehicle over. Or actually, you guys are gonna do this. I'm not gonna be involved whatsoever. So if I were a big enough person and I had long enough arms, how would I right that vehicle? How would I pull it over? Because we're gonna pull it this way. We're gonna roll it back on 4 tires this way. Where would I grab it from? The far side top, yep. So you got A pillar, B pillar, C, and D, right? So these are all our pillars. Here, A pillar, B, C, and D. And you wanna be on the other side, right? Okay, now it might be the B pillar. Now, just so you know, this vehicle doesn't have an engine or transmission, so it might not be as well balanced as it was before. So with that in mind, you may have to use a tree strap and go around a B and C, or maybe A and B, or whatever it is. So if it doesn't work the first time, think about why it didn't, and then come up with a better plan B. Now, before we even do that, anybody ever been in a rollover? Once you roll a vehicle, obviously you kind of freaked out. You're like, you want to get out of the vehicle as fast as you can. But if the scene is safe in terms of it's not on fire or anything crazy, what do you make sure you do inside that vehicle before you exit and go back and do the recovery? I'm sorry?
Turn it off.
Turn it off. You'd be surprised how people that keep it on. You're going to kill the motor, right? So turn the vehicle off.
Put it in gear and set the brake.
Yeah. And that's the big thing everybody misses, because I've seen so many recoveries where I wasn't involved and I wasn't asked to get involved, but they forgot to put it into gear and set the parking brake. And so you don't roll over typically in a grass parking lot or a sand field like this. It's on a hill. So when you roll it back over on 4 tires and it's in drive or popped out of first gear, it's going down the hill with it attached to a winch to another truck. So now you've compromised 2 vehicles potentially. So make sure it's in park, make sure it's in, so parking brake is set. If you're not sure it's even gonna stay in gear, what I've done is I'll tether the back of the vehicle off to something. So take the back end and tether it to a tree or whatever it may be, so that when you roll it back over, you know for sure it's not moving. All right, so now that we got that all out of the way, you guys are gonna go ahead and get this thing rolled over. If you want to use the winch, I would suggest using the winch because it's right there. If you want to move the truck a little bit, you can. You've got trees if you need to use them, another vehicle if you need to use it, or whatever, but roll it back over.